Good afternoon. I guess I can start a minute early and it won't really impact anything because I won't be able to get to the news until I do the introduction, right? So, hello everybody. I am Mayor Watt. I am the mayor of ohmTown. That's ohmTown right over there. Um, yeah, that website right there. That, well, over there, I guess you could say, like that. It's whatever, perspectives. Anyway, I'm Mayor Watt. That's what I go by everywhere. And if you go over to Twitter, I'm there. If you go over to YouTube, I'm there. I'm here on Twitch. And if you go to ohmTown.com, that's where all the news is aggregated into these 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. My particular area of expertise, areas, I guess you could say, is business, technology, and society. I recently saw in somebody else's video that they actually described what their education was. And I don't think I've ever done that, but at any rate, I'll do that today. I'll let everybody know where I'm coming from. So I have a master's degree in business administration. I started out in finance, global finance, and I shifted away from it when I got really kind of deep into global finance. I didn't really like the tenor of it. So I my previous degrees, which were focused on business, focused on strategic management, entrepreneurship, and that's what I had been doing previously. Since I was really young, I've actually been in the startup sector and I've been a consultant for many years. But pardon me one second. Wow, started coughing. And so I you know, I decided that I was going to refocus my energy on supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. So I'm not really interested in mega corporations. I have been at one time. That's where I was trending towards, but then, like I said, I didn't really like what transpired around me, and so I moved on to different things. Now, I'm not knocking big business. I'm not knocking mega corporations or even startups that get massive funding in short order. They have a purpose, they have a goal, they have an outcome. But left to languish in relative obscurity and limited support are the countless middle class entrepreneurs who want to hang a shingle and start working to their own either lifestyle ends or to more ambitious get going, but they don't have the connections or funding to sit there and make the mad push. So that's what I focus on, and that's what I'll end up talking about when I kick off the Hatch Ideas show here on Twitch within ohmTown. It is a part of ohmTown, and ohmTown is a part of my company. At any rate, that's one degree. I have a master's in information technology and focusing on information security. But I also focus that on educating people who are either unknowing about technology, not quote unquote street smart when it comes to technology, and I leverage that master's in IT for the startup sector and small businesses, and helping them leverage technology to maximize their strategic opportunities. And I have a master's in digital forensics for I focus it on information security and forensic analysis of computers, typically used in finding information that's involved with insider threats. That said, I also have an associate's degree in, I have other associate's degrees. So I have an associate's degree in business, a bachelor's degree in business. I've got an associate's degree in sociology, and I'm actually pursuing a pre-law right now. So am I going to continue on in that track? Probably not. It's for my own edification. But that's the whole of it. That right there is kind of my CV in terms of education. What I have done elsewhere, really, there's always somebody bigger, better, badder, smarter, stronger, faster, whatever you want to say. There's always somebody better. Even when you're at the pinnacle of your performance, I can almost guarantee you that there's somebody, again, my stream dies. There's somebody out there that is chomping at the bit to be number one. And so I make no bones about it that I am not the smartest person in the room, and I encourage discussion above all things. So if you are interested in having a conversation with me live, I'll put you in a window up above. Or if you want to just hang out and chat, go for it. Get in touch with me, throw a message in chat. You can contact me via YouTube. You can contact me via Twitter. And you can contact me via ohmTown.com. There's also a Discord, but there's nothing on it really. I don't post stuff. I don't cross post anywhere. I'm not really taking advantage how I would tell others and how I would direct others. I really aren't. I'm not living what I tell people that they should do, and that's mainly because I am not. I'm more interested in the one-to-one interaction and not really explosive growth anywhere and leveraging this for that and the other. So I focus on other people, not myself. But that said, today's episode is number 127, I think it is. Yeah. So it's for May 7th, 2022. I do have a selection of articles. Towards the end, they kind of tend to focus on one thing, but that's only because of the nature of the news. And there are additional things that are added here that I'm not counting on them. I'm not talking about them because they are all about the same thing. There's a subtle nuance there, and I'll get to it. So the very first article is in the continuity report. Fred Savage has been fired from directing and producing The Wonder Years after an inappropriate conduct investigation. Fred Savage, who serves as director and executive producer on ABC's The Wonder Years, has been fired from the production due to the findings of an investigation about his conduct on set. Multiple employees complained about Savage's behavior while working on The Wonder Years, which is a reboot of the series of the same name. So let's click that link. It's just a real shame. For whatever reason, it seems like sometimes people just feel compelled to abuse their authority and just stop treating others as humans. And so this article over at Variety, written by, I think it's Salome Hailu, is the name of the author. If I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, please let me know. Anyway, an investigation was performed. The nature of the complaints remains unclear. However, a spokesperson for Disney-owned 20th Century Television, 20th Century, 20th Television, confirmed that allegations were made and that Savage has been terminated. So, without getting into the reads about it all, it says here, though, that Allie Mills, who starred alongside Savage, claimed in 2018 that the original series cancellation was a result of the suit. Mills called the suit completely ridiculous, saying to Yahoo Entertainment that Savage was, quote, the least offensive, most wonderful, sweet human being that ever walked the face of the earth, end quote. Also in 2018, 20th Television, then called 20th Century Fox Television, which is why I said 20th Century, investigated Savage's conduct on the set of The Grinder, where wardrobe team member Yoonju Hwang alleged, quote, an extremely hostile work environment created by Savage, whose aggressive behavior, intimidation, and constant use of profanities aimed toward female employees was left unchecked. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. But that's what that investigation is all about. And if somebody believed that it was all true at the end of the investigation and decided to terminate Savage, so be it. It's their call. And if it's wrong and it can be proven to be wrong, then maybe there might be action there. But at this point, let's continue on with the next article. The next article is in the Mobile Channel. Germany's military industry gears up to restock its own forces. The country's chancellor has pledged about $100 billion to rebuild its army, but that increase in spending may not be enough to reverse years of neglect, experts say. So this is a New York Times article, and if you're into tank porn, there you go. This is a really nice picture. Wow. So the Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann factory in Munich, Germany, has moved to modernize its military since Russia invaded Ukraine. Yeah, I can't imagine why that would be. So this is a New York Times article written by Melissa Eddy and Jack Ewing. And it says Melissa Eddy, who reported from Munich for this article, is the German business correspondent, a role that U.S.-backed Jack Ewing held for 12 years. Wow, that's okay. So it's a shortage of body armor, radio so antiquated that they are the butt of jokes from other NATO soldiers, a dysfunctional procurement system that takes years to acquire shoulder patches. After decades of budget cuts, the German military is woefully short of basic supplies, whether they're bullets or backpacks. But galvanized by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Chancellor Olaf Scholz has pledged to spend 100 billion euros or $105 billion to modernize the force, nearly tripling military spending from the previous year. You know, the way I see it is if it's almost, I don't know. For me to say this, I have received comments before that I come across as naive, but if everybody would just get along, kind of like how others have said it in a meme style back then, this is almost cringy, but if everybody got along, we wouldn't need a military industrial complex. Well, there is conflict all over the place, which means you have to be able to defend yourself or defend others if you are in partnership with them. And so when a country pretty much next door can take over another country and has aims for other countries, overtly saying that they'll invade Moldova, and they've already taken other areas and they want to put the band back together, so to speak, well, then you have to gear up because it's either going to happen one way or the other. You're either going to present yourself as a force to be reckoned with, which is what Ukraine is doing, or you're going to get rolled over by an active military force, even if they would have been inferior in previous generations. Because you're lax in your defense, suddenly you are the one that's going to be predated on. So Germany had better get moving, and they better leverage all of that industrial wisdom that they have had in generations past, and focus on being able to defend themselves. Now, if everybody got along, it wouldn't be a problem, right? But there's so many things that people find conflict in. And it ranges from some person who gets pissed off because there isn't any French fries in the hopper ready to go when you're in the drive-through at McDonald's, all the way up to one person deciding that they're going to invade Ukraine. So, and threatening to drop bombs. I mean, it's so absurd. It's just like straight off the cuff, I'm going to drop bombs on Europe. Coming from Russia, and then to hear about our own former president saying, hey, let's drop bombs on South America to do away with the drug traffickers. It's akin to, hey, let's drop a nuke to try and stop a hurricane. It's so absurd that most people can't even fathom making that sentence, let alone utter it publicly. So go over to this article on NewYorkTimes.com if you're interested in this kind of thing and finding out what the minutia is of this. Germany's military industry gears up to restock its own forces. There is a massive U.S. military presence in Germany as well. I don't think anybody's going to mess with Germany. Yeah, we're we're pretty buddy. So I think Germany's safe, except that they do need to bolster their domestic military forces. Okay, so let's continue into the next article. This is in the Mobile channel. If you're just joining me here in Twitch chat, hello, welcome. Say hi. Let me know you are interested in this stuff or not. This is an hour of news a day. Oddly enough, Twitch doesn't really give me a good impression of who is in my chat. Because to me right now, there's 12 people in chat. But the metrics say otherwise. So I really don't know who is actively in my chat. So feel free to say hi and let me know if you're interested in this kind of stuff. And I'll continue the news anyway. I mean, it's an hour out of the day and it's rather holistic in its topics. But I am planning to do gaming as well starting this summer. This article is in Hong Kong election. John Lee is running uncontested. John Lee, a Beijing loyalist who oversaw the crackdown on pro-democracy protests, built his career by deepening his contacts within mainland security services. And there you go. Uncontested. So this transformation of Hong Kong is going to continue. And you're going to see a fundamental shift. When hundreds of thousands of Hong Kong residents took to the streets in 2019 to protest a proposed extradition bill, John Lee, the security secretary at the time, went before the city's legislative council to defend the government's position. During the session, Mr. Lee, a former police officer, was questioned about the excessive use of force and tear gas on protesters by the police. Combative lawmakers shouted down with John Lee. One accused him of trying to sell out Hong Kong for personal gains in his dogged pursuit of a bill that would force some people to face trial in mainland China. Yeah, we're going to keep seeing some shifting of the politics in Hong Kong. And to run unopposed is seemingly an absurdity in most other free countries. You don't have an unopposed anything. You can't run for local city council where it's free. You're not getting a salary here in the States. And me in particular, like I have a friend that ran for a completely volunteer position and was receiving death threats because at least one person, he received more than one, but he told me specifically about one. One person in particular was so angry that he had to purchase protection, so to speak, and it continued so until the end of the term of office. So quite fascinating that people are so vitriolic about something like that. But this is massive. This particular political bent is going to pull Hong Kong in a particular direction. So let's continue on. We'll again, like all of the articles, it's an ongoing thing, so nothing is static, and we will continue to watch it and report. I just aggregate the news. I give, again, my frames drop, but only to Twitch. It's weird. At any rate, everything is always in flux. I aggregate the news and then I report out about 20 of them, 20 articles, but you can go to ohmTown.com and see for yourself all of the news that is being aggregated into those 6 categories and 50 channels. I just take a sample of them, give my perspective from what I said earlier, my academic and professional experience. Nobody has to agree with it, and I'm more than willing to discuss it. So come on down and chat with me. This next article is over on Smack Talk, and it says Apple's self-repair program was never going to be what repair advocates wanted. So it says Apple's self-service repair program isn't a perfect solution that addresses all of the concerns of the right to repair movement. It was never meant to. So they just recently launched an Apple certified type of repair program where you can get parts to repair Apple products. This is an article over at appleinsider.com written by Mike Peterson. And it says here, the move marked a turning point for Apple, a company that had long shied away from making it easy for users to repair their own devices. While some repair advocates have praised Apple's move, others have criticized it as being too difficult and expensive. There's kind of a give and take here. If you're going to get Apple certified parts, they're going to have to come from authorized service centers, wherever they may be. If you're sophisticated enough to do the repair down to the component level, then you can always go and find other components. But obviously, certain things are going to have to be purchased by or through a certified center. So it says Apple first announced the self-service repair program in November of 2021. Just about a month ago, they started up the actual program. Through the new repair portal, users can order parts for a number of iPhone models to carry out standard repairs like battery swaps, speaker replacements, and display fixes. The portal also offers toolkits that are available to purchase or rent for a specific period of time. If you have to rent a tool to work on a phone, that tool has to be wildly expensive. Anyway, so of course iFixit wants to promote that right to repair and be able to sell tools and whatnot, and they provide guides all over the place. I don't think that you can really find a mobile device that isn't in the iFixit site. I haven't really searched for much, but I tend to donate my phones or sell them back to Apple so that they can do whatever they need to do. Typically, they recover all of the parts that can still be used. You can pull back the aluminum and reforge it into the new devices, which is pretty typical. So let's continue on. It's going to be something to watch as people evaluate this self-repair program from Apple and make additional commentaries about it. So this next article is over in the Daily News Show that happens to be this show. And it's the Al-Qaeda chief blames U.S. for Ukraine invasion in new video. So the Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri has made an appearance in a pre-recorded video to mark the 11th anniversary of the death of his predecessor, Osama bin Laden. I thought that we got this guy, but let's go over to ABC News, and it's from the Associated Press through ABC News. Again, I don't read the whole article here live, but I do give my perception based on this quick review of some of the information. And I have some, like most people, experience reading other articles about this. But this is a wildly absurd take on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because it had nothing to do with the U.S. other than not the current administration. The previous administration hobbled it at a strategic time by not providing it the finances and equipment necessary for its defense, and Russia took advantage of that weakness. That little lag in time was enough to roll this out, and it was actually mistimed. At a different time, Russia probably would have had a better chance of success, barring the idea that Ukraine would defend itself so vociferously, which is kudos to Ukraine for doing that. That said, I still think that Russia is going to end up taking a piece of Ukraine, enough to keep tabs on Crimea with greater force, and they can entrench themselves there within Ukraine. Unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen, but they won't get as much as I originally. I never originally thought that Russia would take much of Ukraine. Their aspirations were to take it all the way to the river that cuts right through Ukraine. I think it's called the Dnieper. And anyway, so this guy is saying that because the United States came out appearing weak, Russia thought that it was a good time to do it. But I think Russia was going to do it regardless of how strong. I really doubt that our former president would have done much to stop Russia. In fact, I think that our former president would be much more like that kind of guard dog that actually walks outside with the keys and says, "Hey, don't break a window. Here's the keys. Just walk on in. Don't worry about the window." So it'll go into greater detail, but this article pretty much pivots really quick to the historical context of it. But it's really about getting into the media, and I wanted to address the idea that this is a U.S. problem, and it's far from it. It is in the sense that our previous president hobbled Ukraine for personal gain. This next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Wealthy Americans are buying second passport as a plan B for families, citing the pandemic, climate change, and political turmoil. This article is over at Business Insider, and it's written by Hannah Toey. And it says here, a number of wealthy Americans applying for citizenship or residency in foreign countries has skyrocketed over the past 3 years as U.S. billionaires, tech entrepreneurs, and celebrities look to create a plan B for their families, multiple investment migration firms told Insider. And that's, I'll be honest, it actually plays right in line with what I have been saying about this. This is sociopathic behavior. This is I got to get everything that I can and screw society in the process, and then try and exfiltrate my personal wealth, even though it was society that was funneling it in. And it's very narrow-minded, very sociopathic, very selfish. And I'm not even talking in the grandiose scheme of trying to be socialist. That isn't even my intent. If you were at the beginning of this, you had heard exactly what my perspective is in terms of my education and my profession. Make no bones about it, I am a capitalist. I believe that a person should be able to create a product or a service and sell it at whatever cost that they deem necessary, or what they deem is the value of it. But sometimes you have to be a human being. And that means not sitting there and jacking up the prices for medication that you can produce for $2, but you're capable of selling it for $3,000 because people will die if they don't take the medicine. Yet that is what has happened with some people. Some people have done that. Other people can't afford it because of everything else going on in their life. Well, these people have their own generational wealth that has been pushed over to them, or they've made a metric ton of it, but they come from wealth already. And now they want to take it away. They want to go somewhere else, quote unquote, for their protection as a plan B. But in no other place. You can become a millionaire. You can become a billionaire. But there is a lot of opportunity in certain countries. And to go somewhere else doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be more secure there. In fact, there's little to no chance that the United States is going to be invaded by another country, but the extremist element within the United States may impact the future of the United States. So that's just my perspective from within the United States. Other people in other countries see the United States as an opportunity and are coming to the United States. It's a great place to visit. You may not want to stay here, but that's only a select few that are telling you to go home. You can come to the United States and stay. I have no problem with it. Just be a nice person to other people. That's all that I ask. But there are some people, like this says, multiple investment migration firms. Yeah. Not many people have the ability to migrate their millionaires to other countries. Pardon me one second. At any rate, the most expensive programs range from 1.1 million in Malta to 9.5 million in Austria, according to Forbes. So more than a dozen countries offer so-called golden passports and visas that allow affluent foreigners to receive citizenship or residency in exchange for investing in the country. Yeah. Businesses in particular, if you go to certain countries, you have to have a domestic partner for your business. But if you're an individual, you can just spend a couple million and buy your own passport and then make a presence there. Literally taking from wherever you are, kind of like a locust, just kind of consuming as you go wherever you go. So to me, wealth without value is valueless. It has no worth. So the next article, let me continue on because we do have an hour to spend together and I have 20 articles or so. This next article is 3 experts break down why Russia is set to lose its status as a top global oil power under an EU embargo. It could easily cripple the Russian oil and gas industry. Well, this is actually a two-edged sword here. You're going to end up embargoing the Russian supply, and they've already turned off oil to Poland and I think one other country, simply for speaking out against Russia. But this is going to end up pushing countries ever more forward till they are using solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, nuclear power, everything except for oil. So you get rid of oil and gas, and you're going to see some serious changes in terms of political might, because we are currently globally powered by oil, but we are quickly coming to the decision that you can't be held hostage by other countries. And it's something that I've been talking about for quite a few months now, saying, or at least episodes, I should say, because I've only been doing this since January 1st. The reality is that every country should be self-sufficient. At its minimum, it needs to be its own minimum viable product. It has to have everything that it needs to survive. Now, there are strategic and tactical opportunities where a country can create greater wealth in the margin between buying and selling stuff externally and bringing it internally and shipping it out. And that's where you had the trade differences. And not every country is great at producing everything, but they're good enough to survive. Well, when Russia turns off its oil and an entire country collapses because it can't power itself, you have an internal problem. It's not an external threat. It's an internal problem you have to solve within the country, and then add to it all of the geopolitical garbage. And even these borders that exist are geopolitical borders that cross right across formerly tribal and ideological designations that are ephemeral in nature. So that's how you end up with somebody saying, oh, we control this country, because our history has always said we control this country. That's not how it works in the 21st century, and it shouldn't. I think every country that exists right now that is able to support itself should remain how it is, and nobody should be dorking around with anything. But here we are. Let's go over to Business Insider. This is a thing called Markets Insider, and it's an article written by Phil Rosen, and talks about the European Union embargo on Russian oil. And it said it would devastate production and topple Moscow as a top global oil power, and it would take down countries around it, except that Russia is doing it itself by cutting off supplies to local countries. Then Rystad Energy estimated this month that Russian oil production could crash 20% by 2030 to 7.5 million barrels per day. Matt Smith, lead oil analyst at Kepler, predicted that decline could actually happen within a year or two after an embargo. Yeah, I agree, closer to that. In fact, I think while the Ukraine action is taking place, it could probably happen within a year, not or two, but within a year, because it would sap all of the wealth away from the various stakeholders in Russia. There's something about oligarchs wanting to remain billionaires. Meanwhile, the marketing there is quite powerful, that everybody is behind Putin. And there's some people that are saying that he tells everybody that he's making $100,000 a year or something like that. Meanwhile, he has an almost $1 billion yacht floating around. Yeah. Country-sized wealth is not, $100,000. At any rate. So what do you think? Do you think that Russia will collapse if it continues down this path? I don't know. There might be a change in leadership. Again, we'll have to watch and see. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, how an ex-Blue Origin intern got a $500,000 check from Mark Cuban to build a major SpaceX rival. Tim Ellis, a former Blue Origin engineer, built aerospace startup Relativity Space into a $4.2 billion company with the help of Mark Cuban, and here's how. So you can go over to the CNBC website, and I provide a link, and that link goes through ohmTown, but obviously you can just go to CNBC. This is an article written by Tom Huddleston Jr., and this is a 31-year-old who built a $4.2 billion aerospace startup. Now, I don't know what his draw is, but just because a corporation is valued at $4.2 billion doesn't make the person a billionaire. I mean, if they sell it and they are wholly owned by that person, then yeah, they could be easily a billionaire. But in 7 short years, Tim Ellis went from being an engineer in Blue Origin to $4.2 billion in Relativity Space valuation. So let's see. Today, Ellis is the co-founder and CEO of Los Angeles-based Relativity Space, which is months away from launching the world's first 3D printed rocket into space. Along the way, Ellis and his co-founder Jordan Noon. Wow, that is so close to being a Star Trek style name. Noon, Noone, is so like a Sung from Star Trek. Anyway, sorry. I just watched Strange New Worlds yesterday. Absolutely spectacular episode, and the last episode of Picard was absolutely amazing. If you didn't get tears in your eyes in that last Picard, then I don't know what to say. Anyway, both of those episodes were amazing. Man, sometimes I hate how my brain works. Maybe you do too, because you have to listen to, well, you don't have to. Thank you for listening. But anyway, so 3D printed rockets. That's where we're moving. 3D printed rockets to compete in a private aerospace industry expected to be worth well over $1 trillion by the end of the decade, probably sooner. Ellis's penchant for rockets started early. So, and this is what I tell people that I speak to on the regular. Start while you're in college, start while you're in high school, start while you're in grade school. Find something that you're passionate about and stick to it. Because that passion and that subject matter expertise is the thing that separates you from everybody else. You know, people like me who are generalists in their understanding of things, we have quite expansive knowledge, but it's about 2 inches deep. Whereas these people who are focusing on something from the beginning of their consciousness, their ability to say, this is what I'm really passionate about. And it starts right around grade school. I mean, some people know by, third grade, this is what they're really interested in, and it only gets deeper from there. So if you're really interested in something, then you should absolutely focus on it. But still maintain a work-life, education, and life balance. Don't become so focused that you lose what it is to be a human being. Still be social, still hang out, make friends, make connections. And some people merge it all together and they do something like this. So how old was this guy again? 31 years old, and already has a $4.2 billion rocket startup that 3D prints rockets. Ellis figured that someone might as well be him. He and Noon say they've built the world's largest metal 3D printer, a 24-foot tall Stargate, and use it to build their first 3D printed rocket called the Terran 1. Last month, Ellis told Florida Today that the Terran 1 is on track to launch from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station for its first flight ever. Later this year, huh? Wow, let's keep an eye out on it. That would be amazing. And I'm all about competition. I want more competitors in every single sector. I want to do away with mergers and acquisitions. Obviously, sometimes mergers and acquisitions are beneficial for everybody involved, but when it is a limited number of competitors, the only thing that happens is prices shoot through the roof, options are diminished, and the consumer or customer always ends up paying. And there are these people that are talking about, well, we're going to put a tax on companies to do this and do that. And the only thing that happens is the costs are increased and applied to the consumer. It's not absorbed in the margin of the company. There isn't anybody that's making $400 million that says, oh, okay, you know what? I see the wrongness of my ways after a decade of making that kind of money. I'll lower my salary to $300 million. I know it's a big hit, but I'll be magnanimous. That's just not how you become a billionaire. Arguably, depending on your perspective, if you think that you're going to be at that level, you're woefully mistaken. But, aspirations means that you're not going to sit there and align yourself counter to that particular aspiration, even if the reality of you ever being a billionaire is less than zero. Let's continue on to the next article. This is in the Hatch Ideas channel. This is a thing about Meta. I toured, not me, but the article over at Business Insider. The author says, I toured Meta's new store where you can try virtual reality and wearable tech. It didn't live up to the hype. So we're going to just click this link and take you over to Matt Charnock over at Business Insider. And they said the picture that's on the screen right now, which you won't see if you're listening to this as a podcast, It says the banner outside the new Meta store and a display of tech accessories inside, very much like an Apple store. And I don't know if somebody preceded Apple with this style of display, but it's very minimalist. It's each shelf has like one type of product on it, and it's not jam packed. It's very little in terms of display, but it allows you to focus on a particular product. Um, Meanwhile, there are retail stores, like I just reported yesterday about Best Buy is now expanding into beauty and other products. And I'm just, how in the world are they shifting into beauty products? It makes zero sense. And I said yesterday that that pretty much sends off the flare for help. There's something wrong with Best Buy, even though they are seeing an increase in profits and sales. There's something going on with Best Buy. I just don't see them, in 10 years still in existence. Well, this article is about Meta, the corporate parent company of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus, formerly known as Facebook Incorporated. This is and I say this every time I bring up Meta. Meta is the Facebook equivalent of Google being owned by Alphabet. Really, what created Meta was Facebook, and really what created Alphabet was Google, and all of that value was pushed off into a parent organization. So if anything below it collapses or the reputation starts to suck, it doesn't weigh Meta or Alphabet down entirely. Plus, it also allows um, some financial. I've been told it's machinations, not machinations, but I don't really like it. I don't like saying machinations. I like machinations because it's a machine, it's processes, it's things. Anyway, the tech company currently has 3 product lines: Meta Quest, Meta Portal, and most recently Ray-Ban Stories. All right. To help customers explore what the company's homepage says is the next evolution of digital connection. Unfortunately, I don't think that virtual reality is where it is really going to be adopted in terms of virtual versus augmented realities. I want to be able to put on my glasses, and my augmented reality is presented wherever I look based on whatever factors are available, from QR codes being seen by my camera to something that is GPS positioned within a location. When I walk into a room and I have sensors, then activates the augmented reality environment. I want to be able to look at a big screen TV on the wall in front of me, and instead of having the actual TV have to be on, it's just a placeholder where the screen would be every time I look at it through my augmented reality glasses. So is the screen, plus countless other things that go on. Virtual reality pulls you into a very enclosed environment, and you lose touch with the external environment. It's a great place to visit, but I think living in AR is where it's really going to be greatly adopted. And Google Glass was the very first really mainstream product, and society wasn't ready for it. People were called glass holes because they were wearing Google Glass in places where they shouldn't, like bathrooms. And it really should be a matter of that kind of stuff gets turned off when you walk into a public bathroom, restaurants and stuff like that. It gets turned off in those environments, in the bathrooms, not necessarily everywhere, but in perceived private places. You could actually do signal jamming in that, but that creates another issue. But anyway, my point is augmented reality is really the future for the general public. Whereas virtual reality allows a more specialized environment to be created for a particular outcome or goal. So what do you think? Do you think that a storefront is where it's at for VR and AR tech? I don't know. On the tail end of a pandemic, I'm sure there are people that will take the risk anyway, but I'm not putting on anything inside any store, not while the pandemic is still in play. And like all of the articles, the Insider series of articles always has kind of a little snippet of text and then a picture and then another snippet of text and then a picture. They sometimes have other articles attached to it, but it is what it is. So the most interesting showcase is reserved for Meta's series of smart glasses, and the author asked to try out a pair. And these are the Ray-Ban ones. All right, just call them Ray-Bans, right? Ray-Ban stories. I'll have to look at them. They look like there was a previous product that looked exactly like those. Oh my gosh, what were they? Were they called Snap? Let me see something real quick. They might have been Snap. Yeah. They're Spectacles by Snap. Yeah. And they look really close to this, but at any rate, they allow you to take pictures and video without opening your smartphone, and can also play music and take calls via a set of built-in microphones and open ear speakers. Great. More people holding their phone like this, talking at it. Why do you hold your phone like that? Nobody else cares about your discussion. Great. You saw the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. That's all we needed to know. Okay, so the next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. And Elon Musk wants to hire thousands of new employees at Twitter, shed some existing staffers, and quintuple revenue by 2028, report says. Elon Musk plans to hire 3,600 new employees, shed some, and quintuple revenue, according to the New York Times. In a pitch deck, the Tesla CEO claimed he could boost Twitter's user base to over 931 million. Musk told investors he'd probably double or triple their money if they backed him, it was reported. Elon Musk wants to hire thousands of new employees at Twitter. Yeah, employees are really expensive. Everybody thinks, oh, well, it's only $35,000 for an employee, but there's another 20% on the back end that nobody ever even accounts for, and all of the other issues related to having humans in the enterprise. It's not cheap to have 5,000 people floating around your enterprise. And SpaceX is not cheap, but it's very well funded by public money. He could literally set any price he wants to for rockets to be sent out into space. Why? Because there isn't much competition there. So everybody is going to spend $1 billion to send whatever they need into space. Why? Because what they're sending into space has really long legs, and it will stay in space for 20 years plus, and they'll recover their money. Or they won't do it, and they won't get any of the opportunity that's offered. So he can, jack the price up as much as he wants. Twitter, somebody could spin up another Twitter overnight, and everybody can start chipping away at Twitter's infrastructure. There's no real competitive advantage in Twitter other than there is a massive number of people at Twitter. Same thing goes for enterprise like Reddit. And there was a previous one. Oh gosh, my brain just, oh my goodness. There was another website like Reddit, and they pivoted to basically nothing but in a commercial injection of marketing, and it soured every consumer. What was it called? Sorry for the dead air. What was the name of that competitor? I can't even remember now. It wasn't Vote. My goodness. Anyway, This is going to be horrible in the podcast. At any rate, if you don't have some competitive advantage that can't be cloned, then other people will pop up. But really, what does Twitter have other than, because now it's not using the technology that it used to use, which was built off of the idea of pagers. Now everybody has a device that's extremely powerful, and everybody can send and receive messages of pretty much any size. And it's all about the efficiency of that particular process. So what is Twitter going to do? How is it going to get bigger other than irrational hype? Because when you look at the fundamentals, it may be undervalued, but not quintuple. So anyway, this article is over at Business Insider, and it's written by Sam Tabahiridi. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know how your last name is pronounced if I'm saying it wrong. So let's see here if there's something interesting in the article. Musk plans to increase the average revenue per user by $5.39 to $30.22 by 2028, according to the report. The increase in revenue would per user would lead to the company's overall income increasing 5 times over to $26.4 billion. Yeah. He also said he wants to hire 3,600 new employees by 2025 while letting go of hundreds. If you are not aligned with the ideology, with the dream, then you'll be let go. Particularly if you said anything public on Twitter itself, you'll be let go. Twitter will employ 11,072 people by 2025, a marked increase on its current headcount of 7,500. All right. Well, let's see. Let's watch this happen. There's only really a marginal policy kind of thing. It's going to happen. So if the money stays there and everybody votes to bow out of Twitter, I guess when they do the vote, the public vote, I really doubt anybody will stop it. So he's paying above market price. That might increase a little bit, but really he priced it well enough that even though he's the one that the claim of him taking it over seems to have led to a slump, it's still priced for his acquisition well enough that he'll be able to turn a profit pretty quick. So let's go on to the next article. The next article is Hatch Ideas, and the title of the article is Wall Street Analysts Believe These Stocks Are Well Positioned to Weather the Market Turbulence. And it's over at CNBC. So let's just take a look at what these are. Again, it's an article over at CNBC written by Michael Bloom. I got logged out. Okay, so I'm not going to log in. It's too public. So I'd say go over to that article. I posted it in the show notes. You'll be able to go and check it out. The next article that we're going to talk about briefly, we'll get you out of here. 5 articles or so. It's in the Hatch Ideas channel. Diesel fuel is in short supply as prices surge. Here's what that means for inflation. This is a CNBC article as well. Because of the way the login works, I don't want to do it while I'm streaming. So, diesel powers the economy with trains, trucks, tankers, planes, all use the fuel, and with prices soaring, consumers are paying more. And this is something that I had already said in previous episodes. I can click the link. I'll take you over to it. So I can at least disclose where it is and who it is that wrote the article. The article is written by Pippa Stevens, and the title is Diesel Fuel is in Short Supply as Prices Surge. Here's what that means for inflation. I paid over $5 a gallon. Prices for diesel are getting to over $6 in some places. This one says in Los Angeles. Considering these are the locations of ports and the prices are extremely high in those port cities, you can see immediately this dramatic price increase in oil. Really is, I should say, the price for oil is at a different level of cost than it is at the pump. And so you have to wonder what's going on. The ratio of increase is wildly higher for the gas side. So right now, the people that are buying the companies that are buying the oil are getting X amount of cost charged to them, and then they are jacking the price up per gallon on the other side massively, and it's just outstripping the ratio. So you're heading towards $7 a gallon for diesel, and that means every single truck, every single tractor, everything in manufacturing that requires diesel generators, everything having to do with furnaces, foundries, mining, etc., that uses diesel fuel is going to jack the prices up for the consumer. And so, as I said in previous episodes, I have gone back layer after layer, spoken to various people. Ultimately, it comes down, they wouldn't have raised the price if not for fuel. And again, my stream dies. I still can't figure out why the stream keeps dying. Anyway, yesterday it actually crashed entirely at the end of my stream, the last maybe 5 minutes. At any rate, it says, diesel is the fuel that powers the economy, said Patrick Dahan, head of the petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. Higher prices are, quote, certainly going to translate into more expensive goods, he said, since these higher fuel costs will be passed along to the consumers, and especially at the grocery store, the hardware store, and anywhere you shop. Again, this is because stakeholders demand ever-increasing margins and profits, and they're not taking a hit. They know that people must have this, so they can keep on raising the prices, because the very people that would compete against this are benefiting from this. Nobody is creating alternative solutions because they are benefiting from these high prices. At some later point, maybe somebody will leverage all of that aggregated wealth into electric vehicles and solar power and whatnot, just like Elon Musk did with Solar City, except that Solar City imploded. And there was even a lawsuit about that because it was owned or managed, directed by his brother, I think. So really, where is the competition that's going to pop up out of the woodwork and offset these dramatic costs? If we were at peak oil 30 years ago, like I was told again and again and again, where are we now? And why haven't things been advancing to diminish the influence of oil? Why? Because there's a very wealthy people that have a vested interest in making sure that the status quo remains until they are well positioned enough where they can advance their alternative energy solutions versus where they are now, which is entrenched in oil. So let's continue on. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. Soul Cycle founder start peoplehood with workouts for the self. For their second act, the fitness entrepreneurs Julie Rice and Elizabeth Cutler are building a company centered around workouts for the self. So let's click this link and see what sense this makes. Soul Cycle without the bike. Here comes peoplehood. For their second act, the fitness entrepreneurs Julie Rice and Elizabeth Cutler, C-U-T-L-E-R, Cutler, are building a company centered on workouts for the self. A room for discussion sessions called Gathers at the Manhattan headquarters of the startup Peoplehood. Let's see here. Since last summer, a startup in beta mode has been soliciting volunteers to take part in 55-minute sessions called Gathers, where strangers discuss their deepest hopes and fears. This was normally called an encounter group. um, the fledgling company Peoplehood is led by the entrepreneurs Elizabeth Cutler and Julie Rice, who combined sweat and spirituality into their last venture, the high-end fitness chain SoulCycle. So far, nearly 1,000 people have taken part. Ms. Cutler and Ms. Rice said on a recent night, I was one of 20 volunteers who logged on to a remote session moderated by Shamika Jones, an actress, dancer, and model who, in Peoplehood speak, is a super connector. All right. So is that what this is? Selling connection. Yeah, I mean, there are groups like this all over the place. I wonder if there is something particularly unique about this. You can pretty much find these kind of encounter groups, these social organizations that put people together so that they can talk about whatever issues they might be having. Sans having the high price of a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, therapist. And this kind of speaks to it. Ms. Cutler and Ms. Rice also sell Peoplehood merchandise, of course, including prayer candles, caps, tote bags, and sweatshirts. I know that my prayer candle and prayer tote bag will change the dynamic. Okay, let's move on. You can check this article out over via the link. It's always in the show notes, as usual. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. A Republican candidate. I chose this one because this one was really wild. When I learned about it a few days ago, it hadn't been aggregated into my news aggregator for me to actually find. I ended up finding this particular one this morning. But it says a Republican candidate charged with murdering his wife with a flower pot wins town primary from a jail cell. And you could hear people going, please don't be GOP, please don't be GOP. And yeah, it was a GOP person. So Andrew Wilhoit won a GOP primary for one of 3 open seats on a local township board in Indiana. Currently in jail, facing charges for the murder of his wife, wherein he actually said, hey, I killed my wife with a flower pot. And the day that he killed her, it was her last chemotherapy session because she has cancer. Anyway, in the Tuesday primary, Andrew Wilhoit, 40, from Lebanon, Indiana, received 60 of the 276 total votes, and that was just shy of 30% of the total number of votes that were cast. Pretty amazing, right? Let's click the link. At least you get to see it over at businessinsider.com. Alia Shoaib is the author of the article, and there's really not much else to say. I mean, I read about this in other places and then subsequently found it popping up as I went through the last 24 hours of news, and thought it was really interesting that it just makes you wonder why people vote. What are they voting for? Are they voting for the name recognition? Are they voting because they think that it's okay to smash a flower pot over your health compromised wife because of whatever is going on? I mean, the guy isn't a gem, so why did anybody vote? Her body was found by police on March 26th, partially submerged in about 3 feet of water. I mean, it's just so disgusting. How could he remain on the ballot? How could he remain a possibility for election? Oh, it's because he hasn't been convicted yet, even though he disclosed to police that, yes, he did it. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Trump reportedly suggested launching missiles into Mexico to destroy the drug labs, former Defense Secretary Mark Esper says. This in the I expect nothing else news. Of course he did. Of course you can launch missiles into other countries to destroy drug labs. Of course. Just like you can launch a nuclear warhead into a hurricane to disperse it. Sure. I don't know how to describe this. The only reason why I brought it up is because of this. It's so absurd, and that our former U.S. president actually makes these disclosures, these statements, these thoughts even come into existence. Esper noted the alleged proposal in his upcoming memoir, A Sacred Oath, set to release next Tuesday, detailing his time. So we'll go over to Business Insider. Lauren Frias is the author. And there's Mark Esper behind Trump if you're looking at the stream. Just kind of makes you wonder what the hell goes on in people's minds where they can make these statements. But he also said, hey, you can drink bleach and shove a light up your butt so that you can get rid of COVID. Just really absurd stuff. And this is the person that was running the country for 4 years. And it also brings back in a previous episode, I don't recall which one it was, maybe 3 ago, that there is a link about why is it that people don't disclose this stuff while they're in office. I can tell you why. Because like what's going on with the Supreme Court, if you're a whistleblower, your protections are very limited, even though you're not supposed to be. It's a matter of free speech. When you're disclosing stuff, it also violates some various rules, right? So this disclosure of what's going on with Roe v. Wade at the Supreme Court, certain people are demanding an investigation of the leaker, but for crying out loud, this was being done in the shadows. Nobody was supposed to know until it hit the table. And the problem there is that there should have been disclosure. This shouldn't have been done. And the reason why it was done in the dark is because it is the wrong tack on things. And it's going to end up causing a greater and greater rift and more distrust of government. And that's seemingly the goal of all of this. Greater and greater conflict between the people. And you end up with the people fighting, and the only people that are immune to all of this are the absolutely rich. They will weather all of this and still make money. But all of the others are going to suffer because we are fighting amongst ourselves instead of focusing on what's important. And we all have differing opinions about what's important, don't get me wrong, but there is some nuance here that needs to be discussed. And it's all personal, right? Everybody has a slightly different take on things. So let's talk about it. But I'm going to have to continue on with the next article. This is in the Hatch Ideas channel. A New Jersey lawyer is amazed his 35-year-old personal injury case is now costing Donald Trump $10,000 a day. I thought this one was amazing. Donald Trump will be fined $10,000 a day until he signs a Jackson affidavit named for a 1987 personal injury case from the Bronx. New Jersey lawyer Eugene M. Banta is shocked his old case, Jackson v. New York City, is the precedent for Trump's fine. It's just amazing to me, he told Insider, in the 35-year-old case he'd won just out of law school. So it was 30 years ago, and the ink was barely drying on his law degree when Eugene M. Barta argued his first ever appellate case under the coffered wood ceilings. Dun, dun, dun. And that's what's actually being used against Donald Trump now. A $10,000 a day fine. He hasn't paid his other debts. He's not going to pay these. I'm sure everything that was signed in some other organizational unit so that he can say that it has gone bankrupt. Meanwhile, from that same organization, he's been siphoning money. I have no idea what really is going on. Because when you're at this, you use these tools and they're so abstract and convoluted. It makes no sense to the everyday Joe like me. but I understand it. I mean, I see it actually how it gets done. I see how the sausage is made. But to me, it's the antithesis of being a human being in a society and part of a society where you're willing and capable of just extracting so much and hoarding your own personal everything just so that you can give it to the rest of your family, and then you croak. And so this generational wealth and that particular ideology of just take, take, take. I mean, just human locusts. That's all I can think that these people are like. Sorry. Oh man. Anyway, this article's over at Business Insider. I have to stop thinking about that. And Laura Italiano is the author of the article over at Business Insider, and wrote this little thing. It says here, it was 30 years ago and the ink was barely drying on his law degree. He said, "I was happier than a pig in mud," he recalled, of winning, but Banta could never have imagined that his win in a minor personal injury case would set an important precedent that would end up ensnaring a former president. Donald Trump is being fined $10,000 a day for failing to comply with the New York Attorney General Letitia James's demand that he turn over business documents, and the fine has reached $110,000 on Friday and will keep accruing until Trump signs what's called a Jackson Affidavit, a sworn detailed description of his failed search for the documents James wants. Dun, dun, dun. So there you go. And that's the last article for today. And I want to thank you for coming and hanging out. If you are still in my chat, appreciate it. Say hi. I'm saying bye, but hi. And I want to thank you for coming. If you're downloading the podcast, awesome, wonderful. Thank you so much. Be sure to rate it and review it. And get in touch with me if you are interested in any particular topic. I actually have 50 channels, which are going to be shows here on Twitch. It all has to line up the right way for me to start expanding things. I would really like more people to come into chat and actually chat. I know that people lurk. It's not a big deal to me. I really appreciate people lurking. But I would really love to have some interaction with people. Think of it as a debate. And so if you have a differing view, this is a safe place. Post it, chat it. Let me know what your perspective is. I won't judge you, but I will have a conversation with you. Whatever the angle is, there is more to discuss. And who knows? One of us could have our minds changed about the context. And that's what matters to me. The context of this information changes as new information is provided. So you never know exactly what might come out from a conversation with additional context. So these are all the channels here that I plan to bring. There are others. There's about 47 that are actually publicly available at any given time. I pull some down sometimes to do work, but then I put them back online as they aggregate news and become something that's in addition to ohmTown. But with that in mind, I go back to the front page of ohmTown and refresh, and ta-da, we have a whole bunch of new news. So what do you think? Let me know either in chat or in myriad other ways that you can get in touch with me. Thank you very much for coming. I will see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock, not 1 o'clock. It was only that because today I had other things pull me away. Again, life as mayor is really rough. I've got thousands of bosses telling me what to do. Actually, in this particular case, I had another appointment that I wanted to make and couldn't reshuffle it. So thanks again. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.